Are you planning your next cruise on Royal Caribbean's Jewel of the Seas? If so, stop what you're doing now, because I have everything you need to know before boarding Royal Caribbean's Jewel of the Seas. From hidden dining tips to what you won't find on the ship, and a few little secrets that only seasoned cruisers happen to know. Let's make sure you're prepared, relaxed, and that you have a stress-free cruise. Let's get into it. My name is Scott with Grateful Living Cruises, and I'm here to share with you guys all things cruising, from cruising over the age of 40, cruising as a plus-size individual, and just living life gratefully along the way. This channel has everything you need. Now, before we talk about everything you need to know before boarding the Jewel of the Seas, let's first talk about Embarkation Day. Now, depending on where you're sailing from will depend on how your embarkation process will go. But if you're currently doing the sailings out of Fort Lauderdale, it'll be easy peasy. But make sure you do a few things. So tip number one for Embarkation Day, make sure you're checking in with and taking a look at your Royal Caribbean app at least 45 days before sailing time, and making sure that you have your arrival time and that everything that in the app needs to be completed has been completed. And just remember, try to adhere to your boarding time that you're assigned via the app. Arriving early, although in many cases will allow you to go ahead and get on the ship early, there are some instances where it may really bottleneck the other passengers. So I always say I arrive a little bit before my actual time, because inevitably by the time I find parking or get the shuttle, get my bags checked in with the porters and everything, it'll be about my arrival time by the time I get all that done. But it's important that you familiarize yourself, especially if you're new, to the Royal Caribbean app, because it can really help you avoid the lines and give you a lot of great information. Also, if you are a plus-sized passenger or a passenger with accessibility needs, make sure you do those requests prior to boarding, and make sure that if you're using a travel agent or whatever, that you talk to them about it so that they are aware and can help you book the appropriate things that you'll need to make your journey successful. Okay, the next thing, let's talk about cabin picks and layouts. So obviously, Jewel of the Seas is a Radiance-class ship. It's smaller than all the Oasis and Quantum class ships, and especially smaller than the Icon class ships. But she is way more intimate and relaxing. But what does that mean for your cabin choice? What type of cabin should you choose? Now, of course, inside cabins are wonderful if you're on a budget, but I always recommend at least an ocean view or a balcony cabin. With the ocean view, even, you get great views outside the windows. It doesn't feel claustrophobic, especially if you're sailing in the Caribbean. That blue water going by is just fantastic. However, if you like sleeping in and you don't like light bothering you while you sleep, you can always go for an inside cabin as well. I will say that Jewel of the Seas does not have a lot of the solo cabins that you see nowadays on newer ships. However, the ocean view options and the interior options, they're all spacious enough, of course, for one cruiser. But the key here is that oftentimes you can find sales for one-person occupancies, especially during repositioning cruises. So keep an eye out of the trackers and the watchers, and make sure you're checking for those special deals, especially if you're traveling solo. The other thing I would say about this before you get on this ship is, don't expect the ship to have a brand new feeling, right? The rooms are a little dated, but the ship in the common areas have had a lot of updates. But before you book your cruise, make sure you realize you're not getting a brand new cruise ship. Let's talk about dining options and what to expect before you book your cruise on Royal Caribbean's Jewel of the Seas. Jewel does offer some great options, even though she's a smaller ship, but you do need to know a few things first. So included in your cruise fare dining options, you have the main dining room, you have the Windjammer Cafe, and you have like those main things that you'll always have on most Royal Caribbean ships. And I will tell you, in the main dining room, it's a classic, elegant experience. It was part of some of the things that had been updated on the ship recently. Their menus rotate nightly. I ate there every night in my most recent 4-night sail on Royal Caribbean's Jewel of the Seas. I have videos on my channel. Each night I share my dinner, and I had a wonderful time. The food was great. The staff were all really relaxed and having a good time. So I think you can't go wrong there. And then the Windjammer buffet, it is a buffet, and they have a huge variety of food, as all Royal Caribbean ships do in the Windjammer buffet. No matter what your dietary needs may be, you're going to be okay. For example, I do not eat pork, and I was always able to find something that was, made with all beef or all chicken, or like breakfast chicken sausage, etc. But you want to get there early for breakfast, in my opinion, because it does get kind of busy. But there is a fantastic thing to know about on the Windjammer of Jewel of the Seas, and that is that there is a patio on the very aft of the ship that you can sit out on, which is perfect for breakfast. So make sure you actually do go to breakfast and you don't skip on it, because especially if you're in the Caribbean, it's much cooler in the morning, and you can sit out there and enjoy your breakfast with a wonderful view and the sounds of the water going by in the wake behind you. So definitely don't miss that on your included dining experience, the Windjammer, and you'll thank me for it later, I promise. Now let's talk about specialty dining on Jewel of the Seas. There Chops Grill, of course, Giovanni's Table, which is the Italian place. Chops, if you're not familiar, is the signature steakhouse on Royal Caribbean ships. Giovanni's Table is Italian. It's very cozy, delicious. And then Izumi Sushi. So if you're craving sushi while you're at sea, you can go there as well. Now, I will say a little tip about specialty dining. I've heard other people talk about this, but it really is something to think about, especially if you're a new cruiser. On that first day, when everyone's getting on the ship and they're kind of waiting around for the rooms to be ready, you may take a look at your Royal Caribbean app and see what specialty dining options are open that day, because everyone's going to go flock to the Windjammer, and it may be kind of busy. So take a look at that, see what's available on embarkation day, and then make your adjustments accordingly. But either way you go, even though it's a smaller ship and it may not have as many options as the larger ships, I think you'll still enjoy it. Okay, let's talk about entertainment and activities and what you should expect on Royal Caribbean's Jewel of the Seas before you book your cruise. Now, I will say, do not let her size fool you. When I went on my cruise on Jewel of the Seas, I was kind of nervous because I thought, okay, it's a smaller ship. I don't know if there's going to be as much to do as the larger ships, but let me tell you, there's plenty to keep you entertained on any Royal Caribbean ship. I don't know how they do it, but they pack in everything. They have live music in the Centrum, which is like the center atrium that they have. Every single night they have something going on in there. They have game shows. There's so much going on in there all the time. You can grab a drink from the bar that's right there and just enjoy that if you want. They do have a full choral theater on the ship with big production shows, comedy, game night, all sorts of things. And the talent on the ship was phenomenal. Even though they didn't have like the main Broadway official type shows, they had Broadway type shows with live symphony orchestra playing the music, professional dancers, singers. It was really good. And then during the daytime, they often had trivia contests, art auctions, and just all kind of different activities. So there was always something to keep you busy. And there's another thing that you should think about for entertainment, which is probably not something that many people think about. But on this ship, the elevators are glass door elevators, but they have a view looking out to the ocean. So you literally can ride the elevator and see the ocean as you're going up or down. sometimes it was nice just to ride the elevator and look at the water and see what was going on. Seriously, just ride them for the whole vibe, because it was something that was unique and really fun to me on this ship. So I will also say, if you happen to be a plus size traveler or a traveler with accessibility needs, the theater on this ship was very plus size friendly, in my opinion. I'm tall and plus sized, and so for me, I felt like the armrests were nice and high, the back was nice and high, it was wide, I sat in it well. It had plenty of space, but they also do have even more accessible places, like kind of on the top level before you go down the stairs. And if you need help, you can always ask a crew member for help. But I didn't have any trouble. And the theater is always something that I kind of stress out about and when I'm cruising. And so I was pleasantly surprised and pleased that Jewel of the Seas had me covered in terms of accessibility for the theater. Now, let's talk about if you're planning to do short excursions and what to expect when you're in ports. I could do a whole nother video on this, so we'll keep it kind of short, but one of the highlights of Jewel of the Seas is that because she's a smaller ship, she can go to areas and ports that bigger ships can't go to. However, at the time of my sailing, it was a 4-night cruise, and the only stop was Puerto Plata, Dominican Republic. So this tip is going to be more for depending on what type of itinerary you have, but also in general when you're talking about going on short excursions and ports, even if you're on a different ship. But one thing I will say is that you really need to try to plan your excursions before you board the ship. Number one, if you're using the Royal Caribbean app to book your excursions, the best ones do sometimes sell out fast, especially if you're in a popular port. But also, you just want to make sure that you've spent plenty of time looking through all the descriptions of the excursions and everything that's out there, and you've done your research to make sure that you're picking the best one at the best value for you and or your family. I think it's so important, even on the mobile app, you can look at details to see, are they mobility friendly? Are they accessible? For example, my mother is disabled and we're going on an Alaskan cruise coming up. So I spent a lot of time researching to make sure which excursions she could and or could not do so that we weren't struggling at the very last minute to try to find something. So I would really encourage you to take a look again at the Royal Caribbean app, look at all the excursions they have first, and if you have questions, you can always contact Royal Caribbean, or you can Google. There's a lot of information online about specific ports, and the main thing to know here is to make sure that you plan ahead, because you don't want your few hours that you have at port to end up being a downer because you've ended up now having to scramble. I will also say it would be a wonderful tip if you had a backup plan. Things can happen, weather can change, vehicles can break down. So it's important to have a backup plan for your excursions. Just in case the first excursion falls through, you will have something else that you can do, even if it's a self-planned itinerary for the day. Okay, now let's talk about the quirks of Jewel of the Seas and what types of things you might want to pack. Jewel of the Seas does have a lot of charm and character, but there are a few quirks that you need to know. The first one is, elevators can be slow. I think this goes for any ship, but just make sure you're allowing yourself plenty of time if you need to take an elevator. However, there are plenty of stairs if you're just going quick up and down and you're able to take the stairs. But just keep in mind that the elevators can be slow, and we had a funny episode because we would push the button for the elevator, and one would open like on the other side, and you would have to run to get to it before it closed again. So, just make sure you are aware, you plan ahead. If you're trying to get to a show, leave plenty of time early so that you don't have to be scrambling to find a seat. Give yourself time for the elevators during busy periods, especially on C days, and I think you'll be fine. Also, make sure if you do get the Wi-Fi package, there are a couple things. It is an older ship and the Wi-Fi generally is pretty good, but just make sure that if there's anything that you need to download or do maps or whatever, you might want to do that before you get on the ship, just in case the Wi-Fi is spotty or running slow on that particular day in sailing. A lot of these things are from the satellite, so there are a lot of factors. So don't be thinking that you're going to have the same speed that you would have at home, and plan ahead. Now, speaking of Wi-Fi, a great tip to know, and I'm going to talk about this more in a later video of general tips, but just know you don't have to buy like a package for every single person or every single device that you have. As long as not everyone needs the Wi-Fi at the same time, you can log out and let someone else log back in on a different device. So keep that in mind when you're trying to plan, because the Wi-Fi does get very expensive. One thing I will say, I always pack my little magnetic hooks. If you think about it, cruise ships are made mostly of metal. The interior of those rooms have a lot of metal, and so you can use the little magnetic hooks to give you spaces to hang your hats or whatever you might need to hang up to help you save space and to keep things off the ground. So I always take those with me. You can get them on Amazon or really just anywhere. And I also think that if you are a plus size traveler, there are some things to think about depending on, your situation. So if you are able to be fairly mobile, you don't need a handicap accessible room, just be aware that the showers are not huge, the bathrooms are not huge, and just have level set that expectation going in. I'm a big guy and I still fit fine in the bathrooms there, but it is tight. You're not going to have a bathroom the size that you do back home. So that's something to keep in mind. And, as long as you go into it with a level set expectation, and you've watched these videos and you've educated yourself about what to expect, I think you'll be fine. But overall, if you're thinking about planning a cruise on Jewel of the Seas, I think it's a great ship. I think if you love laid back vibes and beautiful views and a ship that's very easy to navigate, then you're going to love this ship. And it definitely is a more intimate type cruise experience. And I definitely think you will like it if those are the things that you're looking for. Hey, I would love it if you got any kind of value out of this video, that you would like this video and the other videos that I have on my channel. You'll give me a subscribe. I'm a growing channel. I'm coming out with new content all the time. I have more trips planned, and also hit that notification bell so you won't miss what's coming next. I have so many things, and we do everything from ship tours, informational things, and just tips and tricks to try to help you plan your cruise great. So until next time, guys, stay grateful, keep cruising, and live your best life at sea. I'm Scott with Grateful Living Cruises, and I will see you on board.